All right, we are live. I would like to call the City Council meeting for November 18th, 2014 to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Bush, Soldner,
Here.
Pyrus de Carvalho,
Here.
Dave Line,
Here.
Prowett.
Here.
Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And our next item, we don't have anyone to do the prayer this morning, so we'll be going on to next item, please.
Item 4, oral communications from the audience.
This is a time that we take communications from the audience of anything that is not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council this morning? Seeing none. Next item, please.
Items 5A through D, consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Soldner,
Yes.
Pyrus de Carvalho,
Yes.
Dave Line.
Yes.
Prowett.
Yes. Next item, please.
Item 6A, consider request for conditional use permit for an agricultural chemical storage facility.
Hi, good morning. I'm Casey Jones, Senior Planner, and the applicant for this case is Helena Chemical Company. They currently operate a business in Hutchinson at 1406 Fabian Street. They've been operating at that location for about 3 years, and this request is for a conditional use permit to construct a new building on that same property. As you can see on the map, the property outlined in yellow is the property we're talking about. It's zoned I3, heavy industrial, and everything around it is also zoned industrial. It's in one of our industrial parks over near the airport. The existing building is about 6,000 square feet in size, and the new building would be about 8,000 square feet in size and will be located just to the south of the existing building. Here is a map showing the city's future land use map for that area, and it does call for industrial uses in that neighborhood. So adding a new storage building to this site is consistent with our future land use map. And here is a picture of the type of building that's proposed. Now, this isn't necessarily the exact color that would be used, but this is just the general style of building that's being proposed. It would be slab on grade. And then also we have a picture here of the site plan, which shows you the existing building in the center, and then the proposed building at the bottom there, which is the south side of the lot. And then also at the northwest corner of the lot, we have a proposed concrete pad. That is actually where the existing driveway is located. And our zoning ordinance requires 10 parking spaces based on the size of the building. And there really isn't any paved parking on this property currently. Most of the lot is sand or gravel, and that doesn't meet our current parking standards. So that's what the applicant is proposing to do to meet that standard, to put in those 10 concrete spaces near the entrance there. We did have some discussion with our planning commission about that. I know that here in the near future, we're going to have the planning commission look into possibly changing some of our parking standards in our zoning ordinance. And what we talked about with the planning commission was giving the applicant up to 1 year to meet that paving requirement. And if we happen to change our ordinance within that 1 year time frame, they would fall under the new regulations. And there might be some chance that the new regulations could be more lenient, possibly. But none of that is set in stone at this point in time. So the recommendation of the Planning Commission was to approve the plan you see before you and, defer the paving for up to 1 year. And I do have a few photographs of the building here to show you what it looks like currently. This is the view from Fabian Street. And you're looking at the south side of the building here. And then there is a row of trees along the north property line. Our ordinance requires, I believe, 10 trees, and the property has 9. And so the Planning Commission recommended that the applicant add 1 more additional tree somewhere on the property prior to getting an occupancy permit. We did notify the surrounding neighbors and didn't receive any comments back. I think we sent out about 6 notices to the surrounding properties. But the biggest issue, I think, during the public hearing was the paving requirement. And I think we tried to address that through the 1-year deferral. But the Planning Commission recommended approval unanimously, and there were 7 conditions in the staff report that they recommended, and I'll read through those for you. It says this conditional use permit shall only be used for an agricultural chemical storage and distribution facility at 1406 Fabian Street. All required landscaping shall be installed prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy. The property shall be developed according to the approved site plan. Significant changes to the site plan will require approval by a conditional use permit. A minimum of 10 paved off-street parking spaces shall be provided. Spaces shall meet the minimum dimension requirements of the regulations. And then the site contains 2 lots. Based upon the distance between the buildings, the 2 lots cannot be split in the future once the new building is constructed. A building permit shall be obtained from the inspection department prior to construction, and an occupancy permit shall be obtained prior to use of the new structure. And I believe the applicant is here in the audience if you have any questions of them, but I'll stand for any questions you might have as well.
Question, is the applicant, are they comfortable with the conditions as presented and recommended by the Planning Commission?
Yeah, the main one was, yeah, as far as the conditions, the main one was the extension on the parking. We'd kind of like to, if we do have to put the parking in, we want to put it in after we're done with the construction, because we're locating the parking at our only entrance, so we don't want construction traffic going across brand new parking.
Okay.
Are there people office there on a regular basis?
We have drivers come in the morning,
Okay.
the trucks load out, and then they're
gone.
yeah, and then they're
Okay.
gone.
Okay, just curious.
Casey, I really don't want to rehash the parking argument. I know that's not really our job, but I did have a question about the reasoning behind that. Is that based on the square footage of a facility? Is it based on the amount of employees? And why is parking, I guess, even required in like an industrial zone?
Well, the reason that this is coming before you as a conditional use permit and not just something permitted by right, this particular land use is a conditional use in an industrial zone, for one. But when you're expanding a building by more than 20%, and this is far more than 20% of an increase, the property just has to come into compliance with all of our ordinances. That includes landscaping, parking, and so forth. But the current standard just calls for asphalt or concrete in all industrial zoned areas.
And
Anytime there's a new building constructed.
you mentioned the new regulations. When we hear a lot about those, when do you think those will be done?
Well, we're going forward to the Planning Commission here, I think this month,
Okay.
to start that discussion. We're planning on doing a couple of amendments fairly quickly if we can. One of them would be related to the mechanical screening on buildings. The other one would be the industrial zone parking requirement. And after we get through those two simple things, we'd like to come back to you maybe later in the year with some more proposed revisions.
Okay.
Sure.
I just wanted to add, the public hearing for that will be December 2nd. So it has already been advertised.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jade. I think that's gonna deserve some discussion on this parking situation, so, but that's for another day, and I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I do appreciate that we're looking at that and some other things that may
Sure.
not make sense, I guess. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any further questions? Or do we have a motion?
I would move to accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission to approve the request for a conditional use permit for agricultural chemical storage at 1406 Fabian Street with the conditions as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Soldner,
Yes.
Tyros de Carvalho,
Yes.
Dave Line.
Yes.
Pruitt.
Yes. Next item, please.
Item 6B, consider conditional use permit for motor vehicle repair shop.
Good morning, Jana McCarron, Director of Planning and Development. The case before you is a request by Matthew Showalter for auto repair business in the C4 special. Whoa. Okay. In the C4 Special Commercial District, and the property address is 1618 East 4th Avenue. And here's a map of the project site. It's located right up against the railroad there. The railroad butts the property on the east. Just a little background for this property. It was formerly used for auto repair. If you got the chance to drive past here, it is a garage. But it has the most recent use on the property was for Jordan and Son carports. And the property's been vacant for approximately 2.5 years. A conditional use permit is required for auto repair in the C4 zone, and we don't have a record that there was ever one granted for this property. As part of the conditional use permit, we require a site plan for the property, and the property is required to come into compliance with current standards, much like Casey just mentioned. So presently the property is unpaved. The conditional use permit would require paving of this site. It is in a commercial zone. You can see based on the site plan here that 9 parking spaces are required based on the number of bays. So the applicant has shown paving of the property along with 9 striped spaces. And here's a landscaping plan. They will have to do some landscaping on the property. There will be a screening fence required, and that will be located there on the west side of the property between the building site, and there's an existing residence to the west. I have a couple of photos here. This is from the railroad side, the east side there. This is property actually behind the property where they were parking vehicles. Those have been removed. Those have been removed. Okay, we did notify surrounding property owners about this request, and we received 1 comment in favor of the proposal. As you probably are aware, the applicant's already been operating out of this facility. We're just trying to bring them into compliance with our regulations. The Planning Commission considered this request at their November 4th meeting, and they recommended approval based upon the required factors with the following conditions: that the conditional use permit only be used for motor vehicle repair, that paving shall be installed within 180 days of City Council approval of the conditional use permit or by May 18th, 2015. Landscaping and screening would also be installed within 180 days of your approval or by May 18th, 2015. That a fence permit would be required, a sign permit would be required. No parking or driving of vehicles associated with the motor vehicle repair use on the adjacent railroad property or other properties in the vicinity, and you can see that's kind of been an issue on this site. All vehicle repairs shall be performed inside the existing structure. Storage of vehicles awaiting repair shall be at least 25 feet from the street right away and screened with an approved fence. That's a requirement of our zoning regulations for auto repair. And finally, that the property shall be developed in accordance with the approved site plan. Didn't really have any other issues to present to you today. The applicant's representative is in attendance, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Jenna, just in general, when you talked about being like 25 feet out, cars in waiting, being off the street and screened, how many can be out there?
Well, basically, our zoning regulations say you can have one, or I think it's up to two, but after that, if you have a bunch of them, then it becomes a motor vehicle graveyard, and that's not what we want our auto repair places to become. So this site's a little challenged. I know the property owner's been working to try to get, excess vehicles off of the property.
And I'm not familiar with this one. I know of another one that it just seems to always have cars overflowing everywhere.
It is a struggle for us. That's probably one of our top enforcement issues.
Okay. Are there any questions? Do we have a motion?
I will move to accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission to approve the request for a conditional use permit for motor vehicle repair at 1618 East 4th Avenue with the conditions as presented.
Second?
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Soldner?
Yes.
Tyros de Carvalho?
Yes.
Dave Line?
Yes.
Pruitt?
Yes. Next item, please.
Item 6C, consider request for use of CIP reserve funds for farmers market parking lot improvements.
Good morning, Council. Jim Sightnader, Downtown Development Manager. With me today is Ron Smith. He's the treasurer of the Farmers Market and also a vendor at the market. So we're here to ask you today to spend some of our CIP reserve funds for downtown parking lots to make a further improvement there at the Farmers Market. The area east of the market is a city parking lot and is in need of repair, as many of our downtown parking lots are. This is a great project. Over the past few years, we've actually partnered to resurface underneath the awning of the Farmers Market, and then the Farmers Market group did some great improvements like overhead fans and new striping and things, and the market looks very, very sharp, and it's very active and very full. Also a location in the summer for the municipal band concerts, and that's also a very popular use of that space. But this morning we're here to ask to spend up to $11,700 based on an estimate that we've received from Shears APAC to do the work in the spring. We'll come back to you with the exact amounts once we actually get the active bid. The money comes from a CIP reserve fund from one of our earliest CIP projects back in 1999. We were able to purchase property next to the Hutch Rec Commission at 16 and 18 East First, right across from the Fox Theater, to try to, at that time, think about demolishing the buildings, opening up that space to two big parking lots. This is about the time the Fox Theater was first opening, and we wanted to try to create some additional parking support for the theater. When everything came back in our bids and things, it was a lot more expensive, and so that project never happened. But from that point forward, the Hutch Rec started to use that building for a number of different things, and over that period of time has paid us rent back. So that's built the balance up to the current $21,452 that's in there. We did discuss it last Wednesday at our Downtown Hutchinson Revitalization Partnership Board meeting, and they agreed that this is a good use of those funds and recommend your approval of this project.
Thank you.
Isn't this a dollar-for-dollar match?
It is. It's
What I
a
understand?
dollar for dollar match, and Ron could probably speak also to this a little better, but I think there's some additional improvements that they would like to make along with this. So I think it's a great project, and it's a great way to leverage some of our dollars with the good work that they do in raising private funds to match that.
Sounds good. Do we have a motion?
Well, I would move to approve the expenditure of $11,700 from the CIP Reserve Fund for downtown parking lots to help the Reno County Farmers Market improve the parking lot east of the Farmers Market at 2nd and Washington, as requested by their treasurer, Ron Smith.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Soldner,
Yes.
Pyros de Carvalho,
Yes.
Dave Line,
Yes.
Pruitt.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jen.
Next item.
Item 7, report of city officials.
All right, Nancy, do you have anything this morning?
Nothing. Glad to be back.
We're glad to have you back.
Thank you.
Just in time for the ice and snow.
I know, I know.
Jade,
I don't have anything. Are we, well, will we be here before Thanksgiving? We won't. If not, happy Thanksgiving. That's all I have.
we all won't.
They will.
No more special meetings.
If you'd like to come down this Friday, you can. John, do you have anything?
Nothing this morning.
All right, and I don't have anything this morning.
Okay.
We'll divert, or send it over to the city manager.
A couple items in your weekly report this week. I suggested a possible December 9 study session to meet with the Housing Commission to talk about a couple issues that they've had on their agenda for the past year. One of those is the mandatory rental inspection program versus voluntary, and then the other is the enforcement of our property maintenance code. So I guess I just want to see if that's a date that can work for people, and we'll have a couple other items that we would add to that as well.
Yeah, as far as I know.
Works for me.
Would that be at 8?
If that's, or
Yeah. I
Here.
may be a few minutes late, but yeah.
Be
we
here.
could do 8:09 if that works. No.
Thanks, John.
We'll just talk amongst ourselves until you get there.
Is that, okay, so
That
we'll
works.
plan on that. We'll have a couple other items to add to that as well. The other note I sent out had to do with the traffic study we did at Waldron in 23rd. And I meant to attach the traffic study that the engineering department presented, but this is probably the third or fourth time we've been asked to look at that intersection. You know, that's out there just north of the hospital clinic area. They're a very busy intersection at certain times of the day. And Brian's here today to talk about specifics of that. But basically, after looking at that again, and probably, and Brian can speak to this better, but really the accident history there from just 13, 14 really has kind of pushed our traffic engineers to think that maybe a four-way stop there might be a solution. So we wanted to have that conversation with you because that's a very busy intersection traditionally at 8 in the morning and at 5 in the evening. And we start changing traffic flow there. We or you may hear about that. But Brian's here today. And typically, we would, after a study like this, we would go out and put up a stop sign without necessarily bringing it to the council's attention. But in this case, due to the proximity of that and the popularity of that intersection, we'd like to have that conversation with you today. And if you're not ready to make that decision, certainly understand we can kind of move forward if there are some questions on that. So with that, I don't know if you all have any questions specifically about that. If you're not familiar with that, it is a fairly difficult intersection at certain times of the day, and I think that was a big question I had for Brian was that, when you look at the north-south traffic, it's a lot heavier than the east-west, and I think his report notes that it's like 70% north-south, 30% east-west, which would normally not say that you're going to do something different than what's there, but I think the accident history has really probably changed the thinking there, so.
I assume the trend is upwards in terms of traffic
Yeah,
counts.
Brian, you might speak, because we did talk about where we're headed with traffic there even
Right.
more.
Yeah, I do anticipate the traffic to increase. With
Do you?
With the bowling alley at 23rd and Lorraine, there's some additional development going on there at the south end of the hospital, what used to be the hospital property right next to Olive Garden
The
as
restaurant.
well.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
those restaurants that are coming that I believe will also add to the traffic.
So four-way versus signal
Right, the
at this
traffic
point
signal is not warranted.
is not warranted?
No.
And I know we've had discussions on this at least a couple of times since I've been on council. And so I would like us to go ahead and do something like a four-way stop and then kind of monitor it from there and see if that seems to help or if it's sufficient. a roundabout.
We did look at a
I know,
roundabout.
I've
I
just
know.
said
Oh, really?
horrible words.
Really?
We
not
we
really.
did. There, it's just very tight area with the
Ah.
with the ditch on the south, and then the property to the north. It would have required taking some additional right of way to the north to fit a roundabout in that location.
Brian, you might speak to the question that I raised, is the wait time, as you're leaving, exiting, going home at night with the north-south, you know, usually you're going,
Right.
because there isn't anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's gonna be stacked. You know, we've got some intersections in town like that, but they tend to get through, but I don't know what the wait time was.
Yeah, the wait time right now is essentially a second or under a second if you're going north or south on Waldron at the peak traffic time. With the four-way stop, it'll go to 13 seconds per vehicle in that peak hour. So adding some delay to the vehicles traveling north and south through that intersection during the peak hour. But that still operates what we consider a level of service B, and it's on a grade scale of A to F. So a level of service B is still a very efficient intersection.
That 13 seconds per vehicle, so if you're at the back of that train, it's 13, is that what you mean?
No,
It's 13
it'll take 13 seconds from the time that you stop to the time that you
Oh, okay.
pass go, essentially.
Right, so
I'm waiting for John to go out there and time himself as too.
see how long you have to sit.
And the current delay for traffic, we looked at the eastbound traffic on 23rd during the peak hour is just a little over 20 seconds per vehicle in that hour. And that's going to be reduced to 10 seconds. So going to a four-way stop helps traffic on 23rd,
Yeah.
hurts traffic on Waldron.
I assume, John, you conferred with the folks at the clinic and the hospital regarding this issue?
The hospital's been the main
Hospital.
discussion
Have
we've
they-
had, and I don't think the clinic's been a part.
The
probably
clinic has
of
not
that.
been a part of these
Yeah.
discussions, no.
But I think we need to do that before we move forward to make sure that they're,
Yeah, a little FYI. would
but
be
I
nice.
suspect they've got the same concerns with some of their people that are trying to get to the clinic, patients, what have you, with that intersection, so.
Yeah.
But the hospital, we've had several meetings with them about traffic out there since we did Waldron and their ER and all that. There's been a lot of conversation there, so.
So do you need any actual action
No.
from us, or just kind of
No.
our blessing?
Just kind
or-
of,
This way, if it doesn't work, you can say that you didn't approve it, that staff did that, but just one, and it is one of those things that if it doesn't work, I mean, it's a simple, fix,
Fix,
and we'll certainly keep an eye on that, but we plan to, proceed forward, and we will, have a, communication with the, Hutch Clinic before we do anything, so.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
The last thing I had was just a request for an executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel and confidential data relating to the financial affairs or trade secrets of second parties until, what is that, 9:30, 10:30, till 11 o'clock.
so move.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes.
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 Pruitt.
Yes.
Thanks, Ron.